When she was just a girl, she expected a world, but it flew away from her reach, so she went away in her sleep. Paradise, paradise, paradise. Every time she closes your eyes. When she was just a girl, she expected a world, but it flew away from her reach. She put it catching a tear. Life goes on, it gets so heavy, and we break the butterfly. Every till the waterfall, and the night, a stormy night. She closed your eyes, and the night, calmy night, where she flies. Close your eyes, and the night, a stormy night, where she flies.
Paradise, Coldplay.
So Paradise from Coldplay. I think that many of you, where did I see you? Susan Grimm and Valentin. A big round of applause for Susan. So she's a singer. She's from our region, but she's well known even with Laurent Voulzy, and she's been singing with him for the last 3 years, and then the tournée will go on in Saint-Amand, and you will finish in Paris. So Susan, you've also seen her in Ta-Ta-Ta for the 30 years of Ta-Ta-Ta with Laurent Voulzy, and well, I know him known him for 7 years, and I met Laurent Voulzy in Roubaix in the theater, and then I sang with him a little song, and now he's producing your songs, and we'll listen to an extract later on. Thank you very much, Susan Grimm and Valentin. So I would like to start now with two figures that you will see in a short while. So -2% and -11%. -2% is the consequence of all the investments for planets in order to reduce our CO2 emissions. If we keep on with that amount of investment, we will reduce gas emissions of -2% by 2030, and think that the target is -34. And the -11, Actually, it's in the Hauts-de-France region between 2012 and 2011 and 2019, sorry, gas emissions have decreased by 11%. So part of it is due to disindustrialization. But when we think about reindustrializing, this will be more virtuous and with a lighter impact. So this region is really counting on his planet and vice versa. And this is what we're going to talk about in this World Forum. So we had a very nice day, very interesting conference day here and in the town hall. So Nigel Topping, you're our guest. So he speaks French very well, but his keynote will be in English. So you arrived at 11. Okay, no, arrived yesterday. What did you do yesterday evening? So I stayed in the hotel with my wife, and we had dinner at the hotel. She's here with you? No, she's coming later. Well, and we will finish the plenary with his champion of this climate change, and we'll introduce him to you later on. Just like to ask you, did you think in this World Forum, who did you meet? What were the surprises you found? So I think that everyone was very nice, even nicer than that in Paris. Okay, I was sure about that. So we are, Paris is the suburb of Lille. And three things have impressed me. I am quite accustomed to speak about national and international level, and actually this is very important. But if we keep staying so high, we'll never get the job done. So here what we do is that we think about local implementations. And actually, the World Forum tried to explain this. So the local being inscribed within the global view. And second thing is here we speak about practical solutions. And I've been speaking with the one of the directors, and we spoke about the about practical solutions. And yeah, we've always been very pragmatic here in order to go on with the collaboration is something which is very important. Nobody can do it alone. So co-building, co-operation, co-construction. And third thing is this drawing with the loop, actually. So I find it very important that one is we inspire each other. So local, international supply and demand. We always need to have a loop of ambitions, global, local, and vice versa. So top and down. So and see you later. Nigel Topping. So he's a champion in the UK for climate action. And he will conclude at the end of the day. And we've been listening to many inspiring themes during the day. And you will hear that it is necessary to think differently, to start thinking very differently. The transition must be massive. Massification is very important, and we need to have impact and coherence. And as you said, territory and a company, they need each other and they need to cooperate and co-build. And now we go on with a practical workshop. The President of the World Forum and Philippe Rémignon, President of the Directoire of Vilogia.
Oui.
Only men around the table. I heard you. I promise there will be more mixed. The president tells me, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of seats in front. There are even nice fauteuils. If you want to have a nap, please, you're standing at the rear, come up in the front. We're here together until 2030. The 5 guys here, they are really the ones who are carrying this World Forum since the very beginning. There's a newbie, the new director of the ADEME Hauts-de-France. ADEME is a partner of the forum. A question to all the 5, beginning with the president of the World Forum, Jean-Pierre. We are talking, we are fighting for a just transition, for a cooperative transition. This happens here, but at the same time, we live in a world, we have a planet that is very much disturbed at crisis, conflicts, COVID, global heating. How can the CEO work with all these different difficult elements in the world and at the same time massify and drive his transition, as it was said before? World Forum, it's number 17. I was president of the last encounter. Every time we say we're working on awareness raising, and awareness is already pretty strong. We're beginning to experience, share methods, and the machines is beginning to run slowly. We see that organizations, companies, their leaders begin to find this difficult, risky way. It's a path, like on a mountain, but we're on the road in any case. Today, we have the feeling, with the accumulation of these different crises, especially the geopolitical crisis, there is a risk to just stop. I would like really to tell everybody, please do not stop on the way, because if we stop on the way, we're going to fall. Whatever the conflicts produce, we need to continue along this very difficult path. And organizations like the World Forum, all the stakeholders who help the ecosystems, the region to transform, we need to work even more to support the CEOs confronted to a lot of contradictions. It needs a lot of courage. They need to be very brave. We need to, therefore, work even more and go further in the collective approach. It's We need to look at the co-building, co-struggle, and so on. We need to share experience, and the World Forum is a great platform for cooperation. And even more proximity. The World Forum is a method. You decided at the end of last year's forums to travel in the region. Yes, because if we want to massify, want to help the companies, we need to meet them. We need to go very near to them. That's the reason why we decided to have it in Arras, in Saint-Omer, in Valenciennes, in Douai, with a very strong success, because the companies thought, well, if they're coming to see us with their experts, we're coming and we're going to share with the people near us. So we need to be living in proximity and to deliver at home, so to speak. And this is the way we're going to win. There is a need for proximity, for sharing. I often say that in an industrial zone, the CEOs can meet and decide how to handle and manage their waste and their energy supply. And we, as a public-private suppliers and actors, we need to help them and support them. Let's go even further then. Do you think it is possible? What do you think as president of the World Forum? That this multifaceted crisis, that's a cultural crisis going to last for some time, can also be a trampoline for renewing the companies and the economy. Absolutely, all crises are transformation opportunities. And if we achieve to win in this crisis, to overcome this crisis, it will happen. Today we hear this crisis. There are conjunctural economic problems in different sectors. So we might have even an activity crisis, economic activity crisis. On the same time, it's probably the first time in the history we have a high need of investment because of the technological crisis, the ecological crisis. There are 40 billion of investors in 10 years. It's historic. There is a need for very high investment. We need to find financial means, technologies, innovation, and the human resources in order to do this innovation and this transformation, because we need to do this because of sobriety. I asked that in the gigafactories there would be no parking slot. I'm not sure about this, but at least I asked it. So when you say so, you need to think about soft mobility, buses, co-driving. Last September, we had a day in Arras together with Philippe Vasseur, who is among us. Thank you very much, Philippe. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. It's good, yes. And here, just beside you, there is Philippe Rémignon. He is president of the director of Vilogia. Vilogia is 40,000 housing in Lille, 85,000 housing in the whole of France. You construct, you renovate, you rehabilitate. Philippe. So, after what Jean-Pierre said before you, how can you stand still, renovate, transform, reduce your energy invoice, billing, in spite of this context? The first historic mission of a housing developer is building, in order to make sure that people who do not have an apartment or flat can have somewhere to stay. We started the third industrial revolution with Philippe Vasseur. How can we build and with less carbon emissions? This is the first part. Then now we build with the different legislation we built by producing much less CO2, even in the passive construction. Right from the beginning, we built by anticipating 2, 3 legislation in order to anticipate. There's always a cost, but at least one legislation is on. Has it an impact on your portfolio and on your ROI? Well, we don't have any choice. I mean, we have to do it. We have to continue building. The second part is the rehabilitation of existing housing. There is a lot of work. We need to be done by 2025. So in Lille, we still have 3,500 flats. We decided to begin right now, and therefore we massified. We decided to regroup the purchase orders by 600 flats, and then we told them, you just do the design, there's a flat rate, but how are they going to do that? They're going to achieve it because the cooperation right from the beginning helps the big groups to work and the small suppliers. And they think, yes, we need to be smarter, but now we know that it is what the budget is. And thirdly, we need to change the heating mode of the housing. We need to shift from gas to heating network. So then it's the whole carbon bill is being reduced for the whole district. Urban renovation, we try to structure demolition around reuse. We have a EUROIS rate after demolitions of plus 93%. It's a huge saving. It's in carbon cost, so to speak. So we need to continue, we need to accelerate. Is it open? Is it possible? Absolutely, but then we need to be creative. We need to be creative. EDF2, Simon Kaleskind, you just arrived in the region, you're new. You're working at the ADEME. What are the good solutions in order to continue the roadmap? Thank you very much for welcoming here. I'm happy to be here with you. I'm happy to see this panel. And I think we are not going to stop. When I see the quality of the exchanges, it is really very much important. In order to act, we need to be objective. We need to understand that in the region, there are ongoing works from the Ecological Planification Office around a roadmap. In the Hauts-de-France, we have 50 million tons CO2. And the leverage in the region are known. A third is the industry, decarbonization of the industry. Another third is the transport and housing. So we know where it is hidden. 50 million tons for a lot of people, it's just the same. It's just very high. It's a very high step, and it needs profound global changes around sobriety. But these changes are structural. As an example, we just had a panel around decarbonization in mobility. What we need to do 2030 around the transport is roughly the emissions we had during COVID time. We stopped almost mobility. So when we get there, it's not just only changing from thermic to electric. We need to change completely our habits. We need to focus on sobriety and change the way we live and the way we live on this planet. Because collectively we all need to be in agreement and accompany the movement. When listening to the companies, the regions here, they have a need of a booster for their innovation, the R&D, and the ready to the market. The ADEME is working on the whole value chain, especially around the research. ADEME and the Ministry of Research and Innovation, we have three big missions: massifying, innovation, experience testing, and knowledge. So we need to speak and discuss with all the R&D sector. It is around the materials. If we can change a couple of percentages of plastic materials via others, recycled materials or resource materials, this would be something. And we are accompanying innovative initiatives. You arrived in September. You're new here. What did you strike you on this region, a new ecosystem for you? What I felt that in the Hauts-de-France region, everything is done at the same time. There are challenges that are very high, and we have the Dunkerque region, that is the first CO2 emission in France. And we have the ambition and the solution in order to construct tomorrow's world and to inspire beyond the borders of Hauts-de-France and in France and Europe internationally. There is a collective group of stakeholders. So if any company needs to decarbonize, they will work on their process and concentrate on their own site. But if they want to decarbonize the transportation of its staff, here the public service has a role to play. This is key. The legislation is another issue. We're coming back to the state and the question of the citizens and their habits. So the notion of ecosystem is really important, and I can feel it. Thank you very much. Loïc Belhomme, Regional Director of the Hauts-de-France, Acheter de Terre La Mondiale Insurance Company. You're an institution. You are managing 120 billion assets. Absolutely. We are institutional stakeholders. We're in the finance. We're not the bad guys. We can act. Sometimes we have clients who give us their savings. They want to have a yield, but not only. We have a strategy to invest in the housing sector, as it has been said, around rehabilitation and improving and making it profitable, and around the funding actions, helping the companies. We can be stakeholder when companies reflect how to invest and where to invest, depending on their CO2 level, their footprint, and so on. Because as you may know, some companies from a certain level onwards need to publish a set of indicators that are non-financial and that will define the strategy of investment. Since a lot of years, we're investing in companies that want to become greener. Do you have one or two KPIs that show your investment priorities in terms of carbon, low carbon? Yes, we have a climate plan over from now to 2025. we want to go out of investment when the company is too carbonized, or we defined a curve for the maximum temperature we want to achieve on investment and companies we're going to invest. So these are two examples. And I would just want to add something. We are institutional investor, but we have employees. We have 10% of our employees who are here in Lille. We have a site near a tube station. There is a parking slot. Tuesdays and Thursdays is very full, so people have to choose other transportation means. And then, how do we use our office space? With home office, we can work at home, and we do not optimize. Do we heat them? Do we light them? The public lighting. And our staff needs to understand that 30% of the pollution is numeric, digital pollution. The mails, using 4Gs instead of the Wi-Fi. There's a lot of pedagogy we need to train. I use a computer. I don't pollute. Yes, you do pollute. Right, let's shut down the lights. Now we need to EDF, Matthias, General Delegate of EDF. Very much engaged at the World Forum. We need to clarify clearly what is at stake around the industrial aspect, the necessity of decarbonizing, the aspect regarding society, the collective, the playing together, and in a context where energy is very expensive, very, very expensive. The new energy, will they be equitable? But in a minute. Let's begin with the industry. As Simon said, we have something specific here. We have the industrial site of Dunkerque. That is the first energy, and it has 20% of the carbon emission. So we have a lot of things to do in Dunkerque. The force and the engagement from our side is to look and to try to accompany, as you said, reindustrializing but decarbonizing. There's a double movement with decarbonize the existing industry, especially in Dunkerque. There is a collective created around CO2. I met Mr. Vergrit in the European encounters on CO2. How do we work? How we to electrify? How we can move from fossil to electricity, decarbonized? This is the first challenge. Second challenge is to say we are transforming the first automotive industry, historically speaking, fossil and thermic, to the first electric industry. We hear saying that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, soon 8 or 9 gigafactories implementing. Just as an idea, it's 1 terawatt hour per year. So we are we're calculating according to the RTE figures from 47 to 75 terawatt hours. We are investing to decarbonize in existing structures. The partnership with Toyota since 2017 in Ona. We have an innovating partnership with Didier Leroy At the time, we didn't know what we would do together, but we decided to pool our knowledge together and reduce by plus 20% the CO2 construction of a car at Toyota. So the footprint it's we are less 90 grams to build a car, and that's as much as you need to drive a car over a kilometer. What do you say about the necessity to work collectively? We're talking industry, technology, energy efficiency, but energy cannot do everything. This is what we said when we talked about aviation. We will have to have more sobriety. We structure our approach according to the energy was very strong. The fuel, we structure it around this pool, but tomorrow we'll have different uses. You use an electric vehicle, different. You need to wait for the loading, different approach to housing. We're working with Philippe since years. We know that when we'll be looking at the housing, you need to make sure the management needs to be dynamic and smart. Otherwise, you consume too much. So there is a social aspect too. With Sinopia, this is what we discussed. How do we accompany the young generation to have another approach to energy? An approach that is more sober. As Tara said, we cannot consume the same way. We need to consume better and less without changing our habits. Last question. Will we be all equal facing a decarbonized society? This is the way. This is what I said last year. I talked about a triptych of the energy, and it's still true. Decarbonization, sovereignty, and here the geopolitical context is worse than it was last year. It reminds us that geopolitics and energy are linked. And then the affordability in our region is to pay. How can we pay our energy? We have to have the three pillars. We cannot decarbonize if we cannot pay alternative energies. So we have to build an energy that is available, not expensive, and decarbonized. This is the characteristic of the French energy mix, especially here in this region, because with our energy means, we have the target mix that was the target. We had 23% of renewable energies. We have the biggest nuclear plant with 20% of energy in the region. And we will have the Bouchain site handling the energy supply. At the time, we were talking about 320. We are now above 20% of renewable energy. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. And we continue. Let's go on. This World Forum 2023 has been organized together with Sinopia in the Hotel of the Region. It's their fourth edition. They have their academy, and the subject this year is very similar to our subject, cohesion and use. Tara Goodwin, Alexandre Malasfai, hello to all of you. Let's have listen to the words of use. Everybody is concerned above all use. There's a word you told us in the 1970s, in the 2010. We are all young, but some are young since quite a time. Let's listen to the video and to what use tells us. It was the fourth edition of the Sinopia Academy. Tara Goodwin, you participated at the head of the French delegation, a referent for the sustainable climate at the G20 for the youth, under President of India this year. Alexander Malafai, you're a writer, essayist, and you are the one who is kind of supporting and bearing this think tank which you created in 2012. What is the results of the fourth academy, and that showed a high complicity between the territories and the planets? First of all, I would like to thank Alexander Malafai and Sinopia for this beautiful day. I was happy to participate, and I would like to thank the CISU diplomacy to participate today.
And I find it very interesting to be with very different actors around the table here. We had people that were coming from foundations, companies, and that are really engaged today in vocational training for young people, in sports, in transition. We spoke about employment, and all themes, major themes for youth were tackled. This is what I keep in mind. What's a major event you keep in mind for young people today? And we spoke about today. You speak about people's involvement. And what interested me is especially the relationship between generations that I find even more interesting, and being able to dialogue, to speak between generations. This is the best thing. Well, I totally agree with Tara, and thank you very much, Jean-Pierre Leclerc, because this third association with the World Forum is a success. What we notice is that young people are extremely demanding, and they have very high stakes and challenges if we compare them with what we've been experiencing. Well, the planet is not in good health, and sometimes peace is questioned. So it's a time of anxiety. And what Tara was saying is true, and relationship between generation is very important. And one of the stakes of the day was to understand better what young people had to tell us. And a major point that came out from everything that's been said is that we need to be respectful to each other, to respect young people, and the notion of purpose was in all themes. And if we're not respectful, we won't be able to onboard young people with us. And this is extremely important. So the relationship between generations can lead to positive events. Could you give us a proof of what you're saying for the future world? Yes. It's not witnessing, but we need to measure the importance of our families. I would like to remember the impact of my parents on what I do today. Parents always think about the future of their children, and they want the best for their children, which is obvious, and vice versa. The children must say they want the best for their elders. And we all live on the same planet. So this is true for different generations, but even for different countries. It's a shared planet. So the region is counting on the planet and vice versa. So I think I'll speak about that next time we gather all the family. And I would like to insist on the role of education. It's a major stake for the Ministry of Education, but also the role of companies. People are looking for points of reference for purpose, and they must take into account this in order to have a common purpose. And we also need to focus on the notion of managing transition and impatience, because young people are being impatient and very demanding, but they also need time to accept all the changes. But nevertheless, it's emergency. And impatience is linked to this. So we need to have a response to it using methodology. Thank you very much. Thank you to both of you. And sorry to bother you. Can I have your microphone? So yes. Well, it's up to you. My name is Sofia, and I come from the mining region. And as you speak about young people, so I'd like to speak about my experience and of hope. At home, we don't read. We have no instruction. We're not imagining anything. We're not dreaming. We're actually not asking for anything. We're not building anything. But we never get annoyed. No, not at all. But we don't work. We don't work, or we haven't been working for a long time. At home, we're not zapping. We're not leaving. So we're just at the end of a street, and at home, we don't love each other. At home, we don't touch each other. We don't look at each other. We just tolerate ourselves between two drinks. And we're not healthy. We don't cure our injuries. At home, we're not eating. We're just eating a lot. We don't breathe. We smoke. At home, we don't get tanned. We burn. Or maybe, otherwise we burn other people's car. At home, we don't live. We just survive. Today, we have some light in our heart, in our lives. I want to believe in the future. I want to believe that at home, it's possible to choose, to take our own lives in our hands. I have hope, and I believe in it. Well, listen. Your name is Sofia. You're very calm, and but Laure and Thierry, can you come with us? Sofia, please come with us. So, explain to us. You organize this with Sofia to our meetings. So you're asking, well, the words of Sofia, it's not just an isolated word. Many people, many young people are in the region and experience the same situation. So thank you very much for your witnessing, and thank you of having dared. And as we say very often, we are the second region, the youngest in France, but also the region where young people are impacted by poorness. 1 out of 4 is not studying, is not instructed. And this is the record in France. And many people are getting poorer and poorer from generation to generation. And young people should be the future. They should be the future of our country. Sofia, you're telling us that you want to believe that the light has come into your heart and you want to choose. You want to take your own life into your own hands. Well, we are also convinced in the Fondation de France that to do that, we will be able to help you collectively, and that we must act on the long term in order to change things deeply and change what we've heard today. Well, this has come from being angry at the fact that we are convinced that we have a lot of actors on the field with Entreprises and Cité, Réseau Alliance, Fondation des Lumières. And we all know that in the territory, it's where you can get involved collectively, that we can create an alliance between private and public sector. And we're convinced, and here's the big change, now you're the audience, but you will become actors. And today and this evening, we want to onboard you. We don't have the wizard that will change these complex situations, but our ambition is to create a community of actors. So gathering young people, and I hope, Sofia, you will be with us, joining with actors from the companies, from foundations, from companies, so that together we want to identify, analyze, and share. Share the causes in order to find the right collective solutions, in order to give the right to experiment new solutions that will work on the long term, and then measure the impact. Today, we and you have spoken about youth in the plural. They all are our future. And now it's up to you to act. So have a look at that.
Ensemble, soutenons celles et ceux qui agissent auprès des jeunes générations dans notre région.
Alors on vous donne rendez-vous pour notre premier grand temps fort qui aura lieu ici même à la Cité des Échanges le jeudi 21 mars. Et il vous suffit de flasher sur le QR code que vous voyez pour nous rejoindre.
Allez-y, je veux voir tous vos smartphones se lever. Laure de Couvlar, délégué général de la Fondation de France pour notre région, Thierry Fouquet, ami du World Forum, entrepreneur engagé, bien évidemment, Sofia. Donc rendez-vous le 21 mars prochain. C'est ici que ça se passe et on vous attend nombreux, bien évidemment.
Et juste dire que Sofia est accompagnée par l'Envol, une magnifique association de Béthune, et qui accompagne les jeunes, qui leur redonne confiance par les arts du spectacle, par le théâtre. Vous avez vu la qualité de l'intervention de Sofia.
Merci beaucoup, Sofia.
Merci. Et venez avec nous pour agir.
Merci
surtout.
à tous les deux.
Agissons ensemble.
Alice Guillon va nous rejoindre maintenant, directrice générale présidente exécutive de Schema. Bienvenue. Prenez place. On est toujours avec les jeunes. Alice est par ailleurs présidente de la coordination des écoles de la conférence des écoles de management en France. Mais vous venez nous parler, alors très active hein, sur le World Forum, vous avez amené des startups, il y a eu des workshops autour de tout ça, il y en aura encore demain. Mais là, vous venez nous parler d'un sondage. C'est juste une enquête incroyable. 48 000 jeunes de par le monde qui ont été auscultés, à qui on a donné la parole. C'est la partie exhaustive et scientifique de l'exercice que Sinopia a mené aujourd'hui. Vous les avez interrogés pour qu'ils nous parlent et qu'ils nous disent leurs besoins, leur envie et leur soif d'agir. Alors la méthode tout d'abord, c'est quoi ce grand truc, cette consultation incroyable de 48 000 jeunes?
Bon, alors déjà, merci beaucoup de donner la parole à tous ces jeunes. Alors c'est parti d'un constat, le fait de devoir écouter la jeunesse, et merci à tous les jeunes qui sont là, et bravo Sophia pour avoir pris la parole. Nous, on a la chance dans notre école d'avoir 8 sites dans le monde et de s'être aperçu depuis pas mal d'années qu'avec 140 nationalités de jeunes, quand on leur parle, ils ne comprennent pas totalement la même chose, et surtout ils ne pensent pas la même chose. Alors si on écoute les politiques, si on écoute les décideurs, ils disent toujours la jeunesse pense là, la jeunesse pense ça, et donc partant de ce principe-là, on s'est dit il faut quand même écouter les jeunesses dans le monde pour savoir si véritablement ils pensent tous la même chose, mais surtout au-delà de ça, et je reprends le mot il faut agir rapidement. Si on veut agir rapidement, il faut qu'au moins les jeunesses partagent la même vision du monde, et on s'est dit écoutons-les pour savoir s'ils partagent la même vision du monde. Donc ce que nous avons fait, c'est que nous avons créé une fondation qui s'appelle Higher Education for Good, et on a lancé le premier observatoire mondial des jeunesses.
Higher education and all the data. And can we have the slides, please? And we had more than 1 million contributors. We had more than 212 regions, people that are not studying. And we have 55 partners that helped us to ask and to speak with those young people. We asked open questions because if it's a closed question, for example, do you think the planet is in danger? They will say yes. And the question we ask is, what do you think about society? What do you think about the future? And what do you expect from the future? So if we go on with the other slides, so we have 5 key points. So go to the site, because there you have all the content. You have a dynamic report of about 100 pages with videos. It was made in 6 languages, and it was dealt with using artificial intelligence. So here you have the partnerships, the KPIs, and here you have the 7 major regions with the 45,000 young people that answered. So in 5 minutes, it's quite challenging, but so first point is you have more than one youth, and with an open question, you have about 170 different answers. This is when we ask about the future, what they think about the future. And what worries them, you see that it's personal happiness, be successful, have a family. And so these are not the same criteria we think about in our region. So next slide, please. Then here we have the values and learning values at school. Here you have a focus on Europe, but you could also, you would find more or less the same results, even not looking in Europe. And when you ask them what was lacking to you, for some people say mathematics or other things. young people tell us is that they were lacking values and living with each other in order to act collectively. And they need to go back to criticism and working together. Third thing is there's a great diversity between the West and the rest of the world. And what they're worried about in the West is not the climate emergency, but to preserve the material well-being. And it's also to go on keeping it. In the other parts of the world, they fear they won't be able to achieve their objectives and their dreams and be successful. So we are quite far. So this is why I say there's an emergency, because actually young people don't think the same way. And fourth point, it's give peace a chance. So when we ask them, what would you like for the world, they all say, we want peace in the world. And then working together, being respectful. So these are the major values they express. And then in the western part of the world, people, they speak about the climate. And in the rest of the world, they generally think about being successful and try to aim their future. And fifth point, here we ask them, what would you be ready to give up? And here we have complete divergence, because in the Western European part of the world, young people are ready to give up part of their lifestyle in order to be able to dream. So just like what Sophia was saying. And in the rest of the world, we have 26% say we're not ready to give up our lifestyle in order to achieve our dreams. And youth talks is just more than that, but we know that people want to say that people need to or would like to act collectively, and we need you in order to make the link between training, universities and people. And if young people are all concerned about the major stakes of companies, then we will be able to go much quicker. As long as we will have these kind of differences, we will never go on. So we need to listen to them. Second thing, we need to allow them to find their own way. But third thing, we need to act collectively. So go and read the report. So it's a very, the site is very dynamic and very interesting. So you've got plenty of material and literature. Thank you very much. So Susan Grimm and Valentin. So the playlist was Common Choice. And here, Grand Corps Malade, 2083.
Sous la clim et les pauvres ne vivent plus. Les changements climatiques ont été tellement violents que les écosystèmes n'ont pas eu le temps de s'adapter. 1 million d'espèces, en plus des fameux ours blancs, ont disparu pour toujours. Elles n'ont pas su résister. L'année dernière, New Delhi a été entièrement évacuée, asphyxiée qu'elle était, sous un nuage de pollution. À Pékin et Shanghai, une nouvelle loi vient de passer. Sans masque à oxygène, il est interdit de sortir de sa maison. Les sols sont tellement secs qu'il n'y a plus de vignes en France. Et dans plusieurs pays du Sud, l'agriculture est impossible. Est impossible. Cher petit-fils, j'ai lu ton courrier avec effroi. Je crois bien avoir saisi l'ampleur de la crise. Mais pour te dire la vérité, pour nous en 2023, tout ce que tu me racontes là n'est pas vraiment une surprise. Ça fait plusieurs années, voire plusieurs décennies, que les scientifiques essaient vraiment de nous alerter, qu'il n'est pas encore trop tard, que le combat n'est pas fini, mais qu'on joue tous en ce moment l'avenir de l'humanité. J'ai toujours pas compris ce que font les grands de ce monde. Chaque conférence sur le climat est un échec. Aucun G20 n'aboutit à de mesures profondes. À de mesures profondes. Les changements de comportement passeront forcément par des lois. Les politiques devront sortir de leur inaction. Il ne faudra pas attendre d'être en 2083. Dès aujourd'hui, les demi-mesures ne sont plus une option. Mon cher petit-fils, peux-tu demander à tes potes d'écrire à leurs aïeux, de suivre ton exemple? Le combat n'est pas perdu, la terre n'est pas encore morte. Mais la victoire pour le climat ne pourra être que collective.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. So, the masterclass for resilience with Marina Saprikina. She's president of the CSR network in Ukraine, member of the Council of Administration of Village d'Enfants, and she's also leading a program for women in Ukraine. And you're also leader of a program for Ukrainian women in order to allow them to be entrepreneurs and start their own business in Ukraine. Welcome. Good evening. I'm very happy to be here with you this evening. Thank you.
French in university. It was so long time ago, so I should switch in English. And it's a great pleasure for me to be with you. And today, I would like to talk about dreams, entrepreneurship, values, sustainability and resilience. And I would like to ask you about your dream. What is your biggest dream? And I would like to give you just 20 seconds to think about this and just to share your biggest dream with your neighbor. Could you share your biggest dream with your neighbor? And in this way, we will launch intention to fulfill your dream. So just 20 seconds for you to talk to your neighbor and to think about, to tell about your dream. Oh, good. It's a good way also to get acquainted with your neighbor. And you know that I also had a dream. And it was my dream. And it has some link to France. I was dreaming about lavender fields, to visit lavender fields in France. And I thought about how I would stroll through lavender fields, its fragrance, its beauty, but then the full-scale invasion came. And I packed my dream in a suitcase and set it aside, because it was not the right time. It was the right time for humanitarian assistance, for many, many women, kids, men, for hundreds, thousands, and millions of Ukrainians who had to leave their homes. And I was one among them. And you know that time I understood that we should help Ukrainian women to earn money for living. And that's why I launched my initiative, which is called Ukrainian Women Entrepreneurs Hubs, and for women to start or restart their businesses. And that time, I didn't have any resources, I didn't have any team. But then, after 1 year, I have 15 people in my team. We have online and offline components, and we have 4 offline hubs in Ukraine. It's amazing, but when we opened a kind of open contest for communities to select where we will found UNDV Hub, we got 124 applications for 4 hubs, practically 31 applications from communities for 1 hub. And I remember one meeting because we interviewed communities, and there was one woman from Zaporizhia. And Zaporizhia community applied, and it's something amazing about Zaporizhia region. Zaporizhia is near front line, and part of Zaporizhia region is occupied. But in Zaporizhia, there are a lot of internally displaced people, internally displaced women with kids. Why? Because they are waiting for liberation and for the return to their homes. And when I was talking to this woman, I asked one question. Do you have a dream? Why you want this UNDV hub in your region? And she said, yes, I have a dream. I'm dreaming about lavender fields and her business. And for me, it was so hard, because last Saturday, Zaporizhia was under shelling 132 times. It happened just during 1 day and 1 night. And under this chaos, people were dreaming about lavender fields and businesses. And it was her dream which sustained her. And UNV Hub, it is my dream, which sustained me. And actually, we had a very hard winter, and now we are expecting very hard winter. Why? Because Russians hit our energy infrastructure. 50% of energy infrastructure was damaged, and we were in complete darkness. And UNV Hub, this desire to help Ukrainian women to start or restart their businesses, woke me up in the morning. And that's why now we have already trained 700 women. We have already reached 4,000 women, and they are in our community. And you know what? Every second business in Ukraine last year was registered by women. But this year, 56% of newly founded businesses were registered by women, partly because a lot of men are at the front line. But to start the business or to keep your business functioning under such conditions is a great responsibility, because businesses are responsible for well-being of employees, of families, of the cities, of the regions, of the countries, and of the world a bit. And you know, it's very important also to think about this question. And this question was always asked by women who joined our community. And they always say, if not now, then when? And today I would like to touch 3 topics. First of all, values matter, especially in crisis. The second, values fuel your company's sustainability. And the third, sustainability contributes to resilience. And actually, for me, values is also about leaving Russia, for example. Because the war didn't start last year. I'm from Donbas region. And for me, it started 9 years ago when Russia occupied my hometown. And that's why this company evacuates Ukrainian job site company. And they decided to stop working with the companies that are still in Russia. And for them, they lost $250,000 due to canceled payment. And it's just the price for 1 year. But they would like to continue, because for them, it's about values. And when we are talking about values, it's also how Ukrainian companies reacted to the full-fledged invasion. They helped their employees and their families. And you know that when we conducted, together with UNDP, focus groups to find any business and human rights violations, we didn't find anything, because companies reacted with values. The second one is about values which fuels your sustainability of your company. And when we studied Ukrainian companies' activities, we developed wartime sustainability model. And it comprises 5 components, but actually it could be used during any conflict or crisis. And we live in the crisis, for example, environmental crisis. And here you could just change number 3. In Ukraine, it's army, because army is at the front line. But during any other crisis, if it were humanitarian crisis, it could be humanitarian organizations, or if it were environmental crisis, it could be environmental organizations. So it's about continuity, safety, army for Ukraine, unity, and community. And when we are talking about continuity, I'm sure that your companies have business continuity plans, right? Please raise your hands if your company has such kind of plan, business continuity plan. Okay, Good. Ukrainian companies also had such kind of plans before, but after the full-fledged invasion, they modified their plans practically every month, because every month happened something which they didn't expect. For example, they created a list of critical business processes and steps, and step-by-step guide for their recovery, or they added energy independence after the last winter. Also, number two, it's safety, and it's safety of employees and their families. And actually today, for Ukrainian companies, there is a new stakeholder groups, families. And safety, it's not only about physical safety, it's about psychological safety. So companies thought about relocation, about jobs for all, about shelters in the office full of water, food, and beds, and about financial and psychological support, and about programs for kids, and also about psychological support for kids. Number three is about army. Yes, every day, I'm thankful to our army. And actually today in Ukraine, it's a day of dignity and freedom. It's national holiday. And it's to our values we are fighting for. And Ukrainian companies, they also, I think 90% of Ukrainian companies, they help army. And I think that very soon every company in Ukraine, even international or national one, will become military friendly because we have a lot of veterans. But Ukrainian companies, they created corporate volunteering platforms where every employee could initiate their project and collect money. And for example, in Thales, it's one of the biggest IT companies in Ukraine, they created such kind of platform. And you know, their employees, only their employees collected $150 million for the army and charitable foundations. And I should say that just recently, I think last week, the World Giving Index appeared, and Ukraine is on the number 2. On the first place is Indonesia, and Ukraine is the first European country in this ranking. It's just about our donations. Number 4 is about unity. 2/3 companies worked with competitors. And for example, this is one of the projects initiated by National Bank of Ukraine to create power banking, so to have access, continuous access to financial resources even during blackouts. And for example, another example, national roaming, when 3 telecom companies united and created national roaming. And this component is about community. Ukrainian companies offered their offices, their premises, their shops, they gave their products. And also, if you are talking about reconstruction, demining is #1 issue for Ukraine, because today Ukraine is the most mined country in the world. So that's why a lot of companies, they united to help Ukrainian farmers to demine their agricultural lands. Or, for example, another agriculture company, MHP, they decided to support shelters in communities for community members. So this is 5 components of wartime sustainability model. And you see that during the wartime, sustainability was strengthened by Ukrainian companies. And I also would like to give you one example of fantastic company, because I really sure that Ukrainian companies did fantastic job. And this is Nova Post. It's a logistic company like FedEx. And before the war, before the full-fledged invasion, they had 23 contact points for me, for example, to take the parcel. But after the full-fledged invasion, their turnover decreased to 1%. For every company, it's like bankruptcy. And they really struggled with this. But in 3 months, they started their journey of revival. And it was not a smooth one. In 7 months, they opened new offices in 7 European countries. They didn't plan it. They just followed their customers, Ukrainians. And you know that there are around 6 million Ukrainians that are still abroad. But just last month, Russian rocket hit their terminal in Kharkiv. And it killed 6 their employees. But next day, all top managers, owners were there to to support their employees who were there. And for me, it's about values. And also for me, it's about resilience, because Nova Post is going to open 15 new offices next year in Europe. And in December this year, they are going to open in Paris. So, values matter, especially in crisis. And values fuel sustainability. And sustainability brings to resilience, because there are 3 points. 1, the company has a special designated person who is responsible for this. The second, company has resources. And the third, the company has already tested approaches and processes that worked. But also, organizational resilience is based on the personal resilience. You can't manage the company if you are not resilient. And you know, there is one good thing behind this, that resilience could be trained. I remember myself after the full-fledged invasion. I was crying all the day because I couldn't understand what is happening. But now I still scare. Because, for example, last night there was a drone attack against Ukraine. And now it happens every night again because it's winter. But last winter, I discovered my personal resilience tool. It's morning latte. Why? Because it was cold. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have heating. So in my cold apartment, after my cold breakfast, I went to my nearby coffee shop and I took hot latte warmed up by generators. And for me, it was my moment of resilience. And now it's very important because it's one of the biggest global issues. It's mental health. And what Ukrainian companies is doing, they now teach their managers how to deal with the stress and how to transfer this knowledge to the teams. So stress management is very important now. And also, when you fulfill your dreams, it also could lead to resilience. And you know that I fulfill my dream about lavender fields, but not in France. And this is also one amazing story. It's Dobro Park. It's like Good Park. It's a private company, and you could visit it and see fantastic flowers. But it's near Kiev, but Russians occupied it. And you see what they did. And actually, the company lost €2 million. But after liberation, they decided to open their facilities. And this year, they planted lavender. And in June, I went there. Now I know, please do not laugh at me, because now I know that the best season for lavender is August. I went there in June, but I fulfilled my dream. And it's very important not to postpone your dreams, both small or big, because small dream will give you strength, and big dreams will change dreams of others and help them to be fulfilled. And it's about my dream of you and WeHub, and my dream to train 1 million women on entrepreneurship. And I would like to have this big community of women who help each other and say to each other, if not now, then when? And next time, when you think about your dream, just think about Ukrainian women entrepreneurs and ask this question, if not now, then when?
Merci beaucoup, madame. Thank you so much. Just for you, this song, Séquoia de Pomme.
Dans l'allée des séquoias, j'ai respiré en entier pour une fois et envoyé de mille prières au vent pour nous sauver de toutes les peines d'avant. Sécher avant que tout soit emporté. Je veux retourner dans l'allée, entendre les séquoias chanter. Oh, 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 le silence, les faiblesses de ma voix et habiter mon propre corps pour la première fois. J'ai bien gardé tous les secrets du vent, entremêlés, la sève épaisse et mon sang. Assassiné avant que tout soit emporté. Je veux retourner dans l'allée, entendre les séquoias chanter. J'ai marché dans l'allée des séquoias, j'ai respiré en entier pour une fois.
Jean-Pierre.
Jean-Pierre. Our guest for the last sequence, the new path for the company. As I said in the introduction, let's not stop. Let's not stop the company on the transformation path. We have witnesses to big companies that will join us. Eric Campos, in charge of social involvement at the Crédit Agricole Bank. What do you think? Frankly speaking, it is a huge gift you made There's a lot of positive energy and convergence. It's very tranquil. There's a lot of hope. It's really great. The music, everybody's commitment, the questionnaire for the youth. There are a lot of converging aspects. I think it's very touching. I'm very happy to be here. You're a worldwide bank institute. How do you integrate the climate situation? Sorry. And the development of the climate situation. As it is a very wide question, I wrote a couple of things down which I would like to share. First of all, the EDF director led the framework. It's important to have a framework. It's limiting carbon emissions, making sure there is the energy accessibility, and make sure everybody has access to energy. I think this is a three pillars that are very important. It's like a seat with 3 feet. It's fundamental. We need to look at the as-is. My work below, I have to work on these subjects during my work. The climate urgency is here. It's a physical project. The density of the gas provokes and causes disruptions. This is the first assessment. Second, there is an assessment around the financial lack of equity. Everybody talks about CSR, about commitment. We heard the lady just before me, and CSR is not a question of peace; it's a question of war. So the lack of equality financially is key. Third assessment is there is a sociological component to justice. When we ask the question to the French people around the climate crisis, is it a pretext used by the governments in the world to limit people's freedom? The answer is yes to 90%. But then when we ask the question, is there a lack of equity? Is sobriety something that should be borne by the popular classes? 76% of French say yes. So the transition, we are not equal. We do not feel this subject the same way. So it's a conflict of the truths, the different truths. Because if you ask questions to scientific experts, if you look at gas energy, they say do not invest anymore in gas explorations because the gas we have is enough to consume our carbon budget. And they're true. It's true. They're right. And when we ask the question to economists of the International Energy Agency, do we have to stop funding? And they say not sure. Because if we stop funding gas extraction, we might find ourselves in a situation like when we could not get gas from Russia. What was the consequence? An explosion of the prices and a huge inflation. We have millions of housing with gas heating and fuel heating in France. In this context, there are different truths that hit each other. It's like the tragedy of the end of the world. We are facing this tragedy of the perspectives. But there's a point I would like to raise. The collective working together, meshing and networking in a region. These realities, how do you absorb them in your model of value creation as a company? First of all, let's open a parenthesis. let's watch and be careful that CSR doesn't become politics, because the interest of the companies is not necessarily the interest of the general public. So the first thing I wanted to say is that we need a political framework, but because what are we facing? It's a path. It's very complex. How do we achieve this ecological transition? Probably by favoring social cohesion. There will be a new civilization, Mad Max. Let's have a look at those movies. We need a social cohesion, maintain social cohesion, and be at the same time stakeholder of climatic change. And then we need to be careful. There are transitions in the agriculture, food sector. This is essential. These three subjects are the main subjects of the Crédit Agricole Bank. Yes, we have a budget, and the carbon emissions have been measured with Paris-Dauphine University and Polytechnique University. 170 million tons are of our customers. It's scope 3. In order to find a solution to all this, we need to come back to the local level, because the solution is not nationally deployed solution. No, I don't think so. It is going to emerge from the local. And we, as a bank, we are a local bank. We have 39 groups of banks. The CEO live in locally. They are very much linked to the local level. What is your opinion around the integration of extra financial criteria in the global performance of a company? Why are we? Did we have to arrive here? Why are we here? We need to make visible the impact on the environment. No company is publishing, alongside its financial results, its impact on the environment, on the local environment. So we've never seen those criteria. It's never been done before. Therefore, it's extremely virtuous to include a non-financial accounting kind of report. Biodiversity, environment, human rights, governance. These are subjects that participate in our collective thinking. How do you do? How do you trace your fundings? Well, it's a lot of work. We remain very humble. When in 2021 we said we would like to go to the net path to zero, really, I tell you, we didn't know what we were doing, what it would mean to us. So we called experts, scientists, who worked on these subjects before, and when we don't know in which direction to go, we work with scientists. We have a committee in our bank, and we translated this sector per sector in action plans and how we would accompany this transition onto 2030. We have 5 sectors like last year, and on 14th of December this year, we are working with 900 colleagues all over France on a support and a coaching plan, real estate, agriculture, and so on. One of the difficulties we have in the national low-carbon strategy, as it was said before, one of the difficulties is that in the housing in the northern France region, there's a high ratio, higher than the rest of France, of thermic problems, thermic housing. So we are accompanying these works, the diagnosis. It's eczema. It's a solution that exists in northern France and not in other regions. They will have to find other solutions. This is by putting knowledge together that we will achieve. I have a lot of questions, really. You are a very important stakeholder for the development in the agricultural world, and it's probably one of the sectors that is most asked and problematic. Do you take? Do you draw any conclusions when it's come to funding the agricultural world, or how do you go about? If you'd asked this question bilaterally, I would have been able to give you an answer. But it's a very important question. We're criticizing some banks who are funding extraction of fuel, of gas, or coal. But here you're funding the agriculture. What is your position? We accompany all agricultures. I worked 6 years in the Drôme region in the south near the Alps. And it is very, has a lot of organic agriculture. We accompany our farmers trying to adapt to the world, to modernity, to consumption, to the way consumption develops. We accompany them around renewable energies to have more revenue. And we support young farmers. But with regard to the agricultural transition, we work together with them. We try to find levers for decarbonizing. So I think, if I understand you well, we cannot stop just activities. We need to finance activities that might be able to renew or replace old ways of doing. Brutality, it's always bad because it always hits the people, the population. I have a question. What is your dream? What is your dream? She said we would have to need a dream. What is your dream? It's a peace in the Middle East. Could you sit over there with Jean-Pierre? I think you're going to be great friends soon. And we are going to discuss another subject. Jean-Pierre, you decided the relationship between the actionnaire, the stakeholder, the operations, and we're going to welcome the company Kiabi textile industry with his president, Elisabeth Cunard, and the founder, Patrick Huillet. Have a seat. Welcome. Jean-Pierre, when we prepared this, you suggested to discuss this subject. It seems to be very interesting. What are you expecting? What are your expectations? I am happy that you accepted to come because I knew you when I was younger. I am really happy to see you here. I had two things. It's important to discuss with an existing company that is in action in a sector. We were talking about agriculture, but textile is very much challenged in this respect. And I thought that we would need an impulse of the collective, like the operations and the stakeholders. I know you work a lot on this subject internally, on the stakeholder and operations level. And so I would like to have your opinion. So first, question Barthélémy Guimin and Patrick Huillet. How do you explain your orientation and demands in the field of transition, ecological transition. Thank you very much. After Sofia and after Ukraine, it's aperitif time. It's difficult. Well, there is a disruption. We are looking for business models that are decarbonized or generative. We're coming to this later. It needs to be clear and evident to all stakeholders, because tomorrow the staff members will choose to work or not with the companies that are committed or not. This is what you said. It's the searching for sense. It's not projective. It is what most of the companies know, because they know that the youth is selecting the company because it makes sense. And there's a commitment. The customers will choose companies where they will buy, depending how committed these companies are. Therefore, the actionnaires, the stakeholders are young, some of them. They ask questions. I didn't ask when I had their age. Therefore, the commitment in terms of transition becomes an evidence. What can the stakeholder do? What can we do? We need to be very concrete. These are things we've done. We authorized and gave the means to the companies, capitals, with common sense. We bring in some capitals. My predecessors said they will change the interest rate, but probably also malus on companies and taxes for companies who do not do something. So we authorize, we give the means, we train, and at the end, we measure. What did we do concretely?
Parce qu'après, je vous demanderai, Madame, Monsieur, de nous expliquer comment vous transformez ça en stratégie. Monsieur Mullier.
J'ai pas vraiment grand-chose à dire en plus. Simplement, ce que je dis, c'est qu'on a une raison d'exister. Et avant d'exister, on n'existait pas. Donc, si on a réussi à devenir ce qu'on est, mais peut-être qu'on aurait dû être un peu mieux d'ailleurs, hein, c'est qu'on a réussi à travailler en commun, en complicité. D'ailleurs, on a une petite notice. On a une petite notice qui est aussi bien pour les actionnaires que pour les collaborateurs, que j'ai pondue avec les fondateurs de Kiabi en son temps, hein, qui définit que nous devons créer les conditions pour que l'entreprise dispose d'équipes compétentes, solidaires, mobilisées sur un projet partagé.
Ouais.
And we have people that are working on the field, and what we do is satisfying our customers. And in order to satisfy the customers, the orders are not coming from the top, but it's the co-working between the teams from logistics, from sales, and other departments. And what is interesting, you express that the final customer is worried about, well, how do you transform this into a strategy? Well, I would like to point out on what Barthélemy was saying. I think the shareholder and the responsibility of the shareholder is a key point, and his ability to reaffirm and to motivate the operational teams. Make a change is not something natural. So if a shareholder allows you to do this, the operational teams feel at ease to do this and feel ambitious to operate the change. And the most simple things is to come back And we're not large industries, and I think that the shareholder is a key person, and he's also a warrant of the long term. To complete that, we have the chance to have a family shareholding, because this allows us to have a long-term strategy. And for me, long-term means durable, sustainable. We're autonomous in the roadmap and in the indicators, because there's trust also in that. And to come back to what Patrick was saying, I don't want to separate the environment, the society world. But Kirby was born from society, and Patrick was saying, I do a job that I like for people that I love. And indicators must be very ambitious. And now it's people saying, my job is a job I love, with people I love, for people I love, and now we add for a planet I love. So this sentence must come naturally. And when I welcomed Elizabeth a few years ago, we went into a store, and I said, well, I need to say hello to this lady. And this lady was a sales assistant, a very old sales assistant, which actually was there. She was on holiday, and she was there in the store with the people. And it was real and nice to see, people going along together, and not the authority and not the hierarchy that comes from top to bottom. So transitions do not allow verticality. And you have indicators that you use, and then I'd like to how you challenge them. So measuring, so the KPIs and measuring is the key starting point. And now we have a triple capital approach. So economical, governance, society, environment are all at the same level. And we've been speaking about CO2 quite a lot. And so speaking about carbon is not enough. So we wanted to have some indicators very that are very high stakes. And did it change the way of management, your management? Completely. Completely. Because before we had a model where we had only a financial trajectory, because it's not sustainable for our customers, our employees, and also for our shareholders. And I would like to add something. It's the first time in my professional life when we are ahead of schedule regarding the customer. During my whole life, I've always been answering to what the customer is asking. Today, we're launching new projects because we know this was the planet needs, but it's a great difference between before and today. Barthélemy, and how do you challenge the shareholders with all this transformation? So every company has its own stakes. Microphone is not working. Yeah, this one is better. So water for cotton, for Leroy Merlin, the stake is energy, sparing energy, and maybe the common thing is counting carbon in the same way. And once they agree with that, they have their own trajectory. And what you challenge when we have the different management councils is to see that they keep on track. And this leads to the valorization of companies. And this is the difference between the family shareholders and the employee shareholders, because there's a difference. And now we have this indicator that is added into the calculation of the shareholding. And actually, we have supported executives on people, planet, profit. Those criteria were all added. And we think that we were able to decarbonate. And it's on this that we rely. Elizabeth, how many years? Kiabi was created in 1978. And with this experience, do you have a definition of the Kiabi of the future? Well, actually, before we were fashion with smaller price, and now we have become sustainable fashion with small prices. So we want our products to be accessible, affordable. And the word affordable is important because we were useful to all families. Because otherwise the temptation would be to have higher prices and to do less. So Jean-Pierre, well, I have the answer to what I was expecting, and I know two of them very well. Do you have a dream anyway? So he's going to ask you always the same question. I have a dream. It was Patrick was saying, and that I had to a convention about 2 years ago, and I said, I agree with everything you said. I just would make a wish. It's that every morning and every night you say, I have a job I love, with people I love, for people I love. And 5 minutes later at the break, they were actually all speaking about that in a positive way. So in the family, it's that. And we need to avoid distance between people, because this communication changes. And we need to have an action plan which is realistic and measurable. So this is some kind of order. And if we don't have this in order to measure the progress according to the different objectives, we cannot measure the sharing of value. I had a question, but we will speak about dreams afterwards because we don't have time. For you, Barthélemy, I have a question. In CSR, you have the involvement of the company within its territory, and I know that in AFM, how do you see this evolution and this spurring for companies to involve? So companies have an essential role. So the company is sticking to its territory. Well, actually, it's what I represent, which is the AFM. These are the companies of the territory, even if we are present on a worldwide basis. And we all have local roots. Historically, companies from the territory have invented a number of innovations, and this is something we don't want to see. The 1% to finance buying of a house was born here, and I really think that we need to stick again to our territory. We had an entertainment fund that was launched with the region not long ago. We launched Simed Invest. We invested in Aura Technology, and in the MEL and in the town hall, people that understand their territory. So you need to bet on your own territory with all those new initiatives. Thank you very much for your Barthélemy. And now we'll go on to the last sequence of this plenary session. So Susan is also writing and composing songs and created a performance which is called The Earth,
And the inhabitants of the earth.
and one of the titles is The Five Elements.
L'eau est capitale pour la vie, sur ce que l'on appelle la planète bleue. Et c'est un cadeau merveilleux, tombé du ciel sous forme de pluie. Quant à la terre, on la cultive toute l'année. On en tire tant et tant de richesses. Les fruits, les légumes et le blé qui nourrissent l'homme et d'autres espèces. L'eau, le feu, la terre, le vent, l'espace. Il y a 5 éléments. L'eau, le feu, la terre, le vent, l'espace. Ils sont si différents. Et ces 5 éléments, c'est vraiment la recette. Ils sont tous importants et depuis belle lurette. Et donc 5 éléments, c'est vraiment la recette. C'est ça précisément qu'il faut avoir en tête. Le vent est souvent idéal. C'est lui qui fait tourner les éoliennes. Il pousse aussi les bateaux à voile. Et donc 5 éléments pour une seule planète. C'est ça précisément qu'il faut avoir en tête. L'espace est au-dessus de nos têtes, au-dessus du ciel près des étoiles. L'homme en rêve et souvent s'y projette. Nous on appelle ça la conquête spatiale. Oh, l'eau, le feu, la terre, le vent, l'espace. Il y a 5 éléments. L'eau, le feu, la terre, le vent, l'espace. Ils sont si différents. Et ces 5 éléments, c'est vraiment la recette. Ils sont tous importants et depuis belle lurette. Et donc 5 éléments pour une seule planète. différents. L'eau, le feu, la terre, le vent, l'espace, ils sont tous importants. Merci.
Notre invité d'honneur, Nigel Topping.
So, Nigel Topping, our guest. So, Nigel, just before I let you talk. Well, actually, last year, in the opening ceremony of the World Forum 2022, we had given the opened the stage to 6 young people so that they could come and tell us about their willingness on entrepreneurship and transformation. Well, so we have Bastien, Noémie, Thomas, and Chris. If you can just come here, just tell us one thing that changed since last year. So come here with me and you listen. So just a few seconds, very quickly. So Noémie, Deux Air Aventure, so electrical bicycles. What changed since last year? More visibility, then more cooperation, more business, and this is a virtuous loop. And I love your glasses. So Bastien Denien, les paniers de Léa. So 2 things, more fragile economical models, just like and young people have acted even more radically than before. So Thomas, Textifloor, he's creating modulable plain carpets. So the willingness of our clients of reinstalling, recycled plain carpet. And Chris with Tresorium, he's creating numerical experiences for children. I see you've got more and more badges. So during the last year, it's on the 30th of November, it will be the anniversary of ChatGPT, and in education this has a very large impact, and we acted in order to be more consistent. And with the World Forum, it's tomorrow with the World Forum Kids, and tomorrow here with families. We have about 40 children that will come here with their children and then start transition. So this is to show how we onboard even very young people. So thank you very much. I don't know if you've all seen the images. So this was the stage of the World Forum last year. Thank you very much. And now Nigel Topping, so champion for transformation. He's a militant. He's stimulating action, actors, collective action, and collective action with even all the governments, even national governments, or he's working with the UNO for climate change. And you're also a CEO of Winning Business, which is a network of companies. Thank you to be here. Well, I will speak in English because I see that I can read in French, I can think in French, and I can write in French but not do 3 of them at the same time.
What about what I wanted to say when I came here? And I will say that, but I also want to reflect a bit on what I've been listening to and what I've heard. And really, mostly what I want to talk about is the importance of the stories that we tell ourselves about the future. And I will talk a lot about feedback loops, whether it's region and planet, or supply and demand, or present and future. And one of the most important feedback loops is the way that we talk about the future to ourselves and what we believe will happen in the future affects the decisions that we take today. And listening to the wonderful interventions from Sophia with her poetry and Susanna with the music and Marina with your pictures from the Ukraine, what I want to talk about is how do we not get stuck in despair when there are many good reasons to be stuck in despair? How do we not sit at home and just cry all night, but do that and then get up and make amazing things happen? And I'm reminded of the quote by the famous American novelist F. Scott Fitzgerald, who said that the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold 2 opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and retain the ability to function. Now, of course, when we hear that quote, we all like to think that we are first-rate intelligences and that other people have the problem of holding 2 opposing ideas. But I think it's very, very hard to hold 2 opposing ideas in a world where we place so much importance on being right. And part of what I want to say is it's impossible to be right about the future. So be careful what you think and what you say about the future, especially if you are spreading negative stories about the future, because you might just invest too much in being right, so that actually, at your core, you want to be right more than your dream to succeed. So there are 2 main stories that are told about the future with regards to climate change. There's and our response to it and how it's going to play out in the future. The first one, and the one that we hear nearly all the time, is that we're failing, that we're kind of rubbish, that you can't trust politicians, that businesses are irresponsible, that banks are financing all the wrong stuff, that kids are complaining but are actually consuming more than their parents. So everybody's to blame, and it's terrible, and it's going to get worse, and the economic damage and the human damage are going to get worse. And the scientists can prove that. We've used up nearly all of our carbon budget to stay within 1.5 degrees. The damage that we see in fires, floods, hurricanes is getting worse and will continue to get worse. I've just done some work with Martin Siegert, a scientist friend from Exeter University who works in Antarctica. This year, 150 billion tons of ice in Antarctica will melt. That's this year at about 1.2 degrees. Even if we stopped emissions tomorrow, that melting would continue and drive sea level rise. So there's a very powerful story of just how badly we're failing. And this story is important, right? Because it's true. We're failing. Emissions are still rising. But really, at best, this story can wake people up. And at its worst, it can lead to 2 outcomes which never lead to action. Apathy. It's so bad, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to drink and party and, or polarization. We see that in some societies, in the States in particular. And again, everyone just shouting at each other. There's no action that comes from those 2. But it's true, so it's necessary, and it can wake people up. I remember being in a meeting with UK government ministers at the time of the school strikes and Extinction Rebellion protests in London, and a very senior politician saying to a room of business people, the politics of climate change have just changed forever because of that wake-up. But the wake-up doesn't itself enough for action. So there's another story, and that story is being written by engineers, young and old, by industrialists, by entrepreneurs, by communities, by policymakers, and that's that getting to net zero is inevitable. We are going to do it. We may be individually stupid and sometimes collectively stupid, but in the long run, we're collectively quite intelligent, and it's now so obvious that we have to get there, that we will get there. Also, there is a massive opportunity to get there, whether you think at the community level, at the business level, or at the country level. There's a huge market opportunity. Entrepreneurs often talk about the total addressable market in a new product. Well, when it comes to climate change, the total addressable market is always the whole market. Like every car, every house, every ton of steel, every flight, every shipment is going to have to be zero carbon. And the other part of this story is that when we collectively decide, when we converge on what our goals are, then we are incredibly innovative. And we can drive, and we have driven change exponentially, very, very fast, completely flipping whole sectors of the economy in a couple of decades. Now, I want to talk about how we talk about the future now, in particular because in 10 days' time, COP28, the next international negotiations on climate change, will open in Dubai in the Emirates. And most of the stories that you will hear will be written by the press. And the press have a mantra that they are taught when they're little press people. It says, if it bleeds, it leads. No positive headlines anywhere near the front pages. If it bleeds, it leads. And that's because cognitively now, we're suffering from this in social media now, right? That negativity is what we're drawn to, what we're attached. So it's not to blame the press. That's something they've learned from what we listen to, what we read, what we buy. But you'll hear in Dubai that the oil industry has taken over the world because Dubai have a president who's of the COP, who's the CEO of an oil company. You'll hear that the global stock take, the first of a 5-yearly stock take, which was mandated in the Paris Agreement in 2015, proves that we're failures. You'll hear that it's too late, that you can forget 1.5 degrees, we should plan for 2 or 3. And you'll always hear that it's someone else's fault. So the bankers will say it's the companies will say it's the politicians will say it's the voters will say it's everybody, So, and again, with that, no convergence, no collaboration, no action. That story will be there, and it's all true. Because we are too late, we are failing. But it's not the whole story. So I want to tell the opposite story, which is that we are now succeeding in driving exponential change on the path to net zero, and that it's never too late. And even if you think we can't stay below 1.5, we need to fight for 1.6, and if you think that, fight for 1.7. So saying it's too late or we've already lost is just kind of crazy talk. But also, we're all responsible. So it's not someone else's, we all have a role to play as voters, as consumers, as parents, as children of parents who are in companies, as students, as employees going into companies demanding that they align their purpose with ours, as shareholders, as bankers, etc., etc. We all have a role to play, but it's very, very complicated. Now, if you forgive me, my wife's a poet and I'm a mathematician. So she thinks in poems, and I think in mathematical formula. But I want to do a little mathematical lesson, because there's something really important going on here. The way which technology transitions happen is always very, very slowly, and then very quickly. And mathematically, it's what we call exponential change, where the rate of change, so bankers know this compound change, but the rate of change is constant. So you can think of it as doubling in a constant time. So often we'll think, say, of a new technology like electric vehicles. The rate at which the market share doubles is constant. And in the case of electric vehicles, it's roughly every 2 years. So I'm just going to draw in a sort of imaginary graph in the air here. So imagine at the beginning of the 2010, that the share of electric vehicles in global car sales is 1/4 of 1%, 0.25. it's irrelevant if you're a major vehicle manufacturer. There's some crazy Californian building a few cars, some crazy Indian actually building a few cars as well. And then in 2012, 2 years later, the market share is 0.5%. Well, if you think linearly, as most of us do because we're trained to and we're hardwired to, that looks like it's just 0.25% increase. If you think exponentially, you're immediately like, ooh, interesting. That's a double. 2 years later, that 0.5% is 1%. Now your exponential thinker is like, oh yeah, this is exponential, it's doubled twice. Your linear thinker has gone, it's gone from nothing to 1 in 4 years. It's just nothing very exciting is happening. That doubling process keeps going. You go from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. By 2020, you're at 8%. The linear thinker is still saying this is less than 10%. It's not very significant. It's taken us 10 years to go from 0 to 8. It'll probably take us another 10 years to get from 8 to 16. Don't worry. Now, when you hear the leaders of the biggest engineering companies in the world telling you what their strategy is, they're of course not going to tell you that they were completely wrong until they were right. But I can tell you, having been in conversations with some of the biggest automotive manufacturing companies in the world, in about 2018, when the market share was low single figures, say 4%, they were completely in denial. Tesla can't make cars. They're rubbish. The costs will never be low enough for people to want them. Customers just love combustion engines. What they really mean is we only know how to make combustion engine cars. We're comfortable making combustion engine cars. We know we can make money making combustion engine cars. And please don't talk to us about something that seems so crazy that it probably won't happen until I'm well into my retirement. So the fact is that today, in 2023, worldwide, we're at about 16%. I think it's 17% in France, 16% in the UK, 29% in the Netherlands, 26% in China, 90% plus in Norway. And we are on an exponential track, and so the combustion engine is basically a dead technology within a decade. And the most senior leaders in the automotive industry 5 years ago were absolutely convinced they were still going to be building combustion engine cars in 2040 and 2050. Because once we've seen a different future, we quickly forget how wrong we were in the past. It's part of self-preservation. Now, why is this important in terms of the way we think about the future? The way we think about the future in technology changes is often dictated by a few purveyors of models, of forecasters of the future. In terms of energy, in particular, there's the International Energy Agency and Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And of course, the people who use those forecasts to make decisions are in particular policymakers and investors and people making investment decisions in an industrial board. So if those models are wrong, and if they're always wrong on the low side, then all of our strategic thinking will be less ambitious than it could be if those models were right. It turns out that now it's been very well proved academically that extrapolating an exponential trend is a much better way of forecasting the future than the methods which these professional forecasters use, which is to either use something complicated called an integrated assessment model, which doesn't take into consideration politics or entrepreneurial activity, the two things which really drive change, or they try and find all the projects that are happening now and add them up and say that's going to be the future. But of course, you can never find everything. So the problem is that these normative modelers tell a story of the future which is not as ambitious as is possible, and then people make investment decisions on that basis, and so it makes it more likely to happen. But we know now by taking the data from renewable energy and electric vehicles and modeling the exponential change that by 2030, globally 62 to 86% of cars will be electric, and we will have more than trebled the renewable energy generation in the mix. That means that oil demand will already be reducing by between 5 and 10 million barrels of oil a day, and then go into a catastrophic decline in the 30s. Some oil companies are still telling their investors that they think demand is going to grow into the 2040s. This, by the way, is a very good reason of working with young people, because young people aren't anchored in 40 years of having made combustion engines, right? They're much more open to the idea that the future may be radically different from the past. So I've said that we're very well on our way on renewable energy and electric vehicles, and even the IEA agree that now. But you can start to see the beginnings of this exponential change in other technologies that are earlier in their transition: heat pumps, green hydrogen, green steel, green shipping fuels, and sustainable aviation fuels. And that's driven increasingly now by a growing realization that if we set collective exponential goals and plot the way to get there, then we de-risk it for everybody. Now, just let me give you 3 other examples. One is one, personally, we launched just before Glasgow, the Race to Zero, when there were only about 100 companies in the world who'd set a net zero target. And that went rapidly up from 100 to 1,000. We're now over 10,000 companies, over 1,000 cities with a science-based net zero target. In the world of shipping, Maersk, the biggest container shipping company in the world, told me recently that 3 years ago, no one was building a zero-carbon ship. Big container ships, there's some small ferries. So 3 years ago, the number was 0. 2 years ago, Maersk ordered the first zero-carbon ship. It just got launched this year. 1 in the whole world. 1 year ago, there were 20 on order. This year, there's 120. So again, 0, 1, 20, 120. It's incredible how quickly we can go when we start to collaborate. As part of the theme here is about the region, I also wanted to add some comments about the important role of regional actors. When we were working for COP26 in the last few years, it's sometimes a federal government or a national government, the politics goes very negative on climate change. There, the role of regions in keeping hope alive is super important. If you think under Trump, who pulled America out of the Paris Agreement, we had a campaign called We Are Still In, with the majority of American states saying Trump might be out, but we are still in, and many cities and many businesses and many financial institutions. Similarly, in Brazil, under Bolsonaro, we worked to get the majority of the states to be very clear about their commitment to net zero, and also in Australia, when they had a very climate-negative government. And of course, quite often, the cities or regions are more ambitious than the national governments, and that helps drive what I would call one of the ambition loops, as well as we said earlier, of being much closer to the solutions. So let me come back to F. Scott Fitzgerald and the test of a first-rate intelligence being whether you can hold 2 opposing ideas at the same time. So yes, we are failing. We are running out of carbon budget, and the damage will get worse. And it's okay to cry yourself to sleep at night sometimes. I remember about 10 years ago, I was working on climate disclosure. This was when hardly any banks or companies were setting any targets or even measuring their carbon footprints. And I went to Brazil to meet a colleague there. And he asked me, it's the first time I'd met him, and he asked me how I was. And I said, oh, great, there's more investors doing this, and there's more companies doing that. And he looked at me. We met in a bar, it was over a beer. He put his beer down and he said, Nigel, it's okay. You're with a friend. You can be honest. You can tell me you cry yourself to sleep at night. And I thought it was really important to realize that when we're trying to generate hope, it's an entrepreneurial activity of projecting a more positive future. But there's often pain and suffering and anguish and fear behind it, which we hear in the music and the poetry and we see in the pictures. So it is true that we're failing, but it is also true that increasingly we're taking responsibility. And I see the wonderful diversity of speakers, participants, actors, this great intergenerational collaboration that you evidence here in the works. Increasingly we're collaborating to drive systems change. Increasingly we're understanding that we can drive exponential change and get to net zero incredibly much quicker. We see it in renewable energy and electric vehicles, and now we're starting to see it in many other sectors. And we know that it's never too late to start, because the only time we can start is now if we haven't started already. So if the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold these 2 opposing ideas in the same time, I hope that you all pass that test. And listening to the other speakers has reminded me of the second part of Fitzgerald's quote, where he goes on to say, one should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. Or in other words, I think you could say, if not now, when? And if not us, who? Thank you.
Thank you. Restez là. Jean-Pierre.
Please remain here. Jean-Pierre, we will coming to an end. I would like you to be here to welcome Philippe Auchan, Regional Councillor for Economic Development. Suzanne Valentin, please join us. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. You witnessed something very powerful, but you too. You are all going to sing. Jean-Pierre, just a couple of words as a conclusion, even so we meet together again, because we shared a lot today. It's very complicated in 2 words, really. We need to zoom and de-zoom. That was my impression. We zoomed locally. We zoomed on the company, how the company would behave and transform and work with the environment. We zoomed, and then we de-zoomed in order to understand the questions around Ukraine, to discuss around geopolitical subjects and see how we could be resilient in some countries and situations. So it was really a zoom, de-zooming exercise. And I think this is the attitude we need to have. We cannot zoom all the time. We need to de-zoom. We need to be near, but then we need to be nourished and fed by what we've seen before. And when we're outside and up, we need to be rich because we've seen the struggle. This is what I'd say. Very nice, very nice. Very nice. Let me say a couple of words before you thank everybody. Philippe Auchan, he participated in all our works, and I know that in between he had to do a video with a minister because he had to discuss along the companies flooded, above all the paper industry. All this Merville, Saint-Omer, Boulogne sector, Vallée, there are tens and hundreds of destroyed companies, hundreds of staff that won't be able to work and who do not know when they will be able to work. Looking at this tremendous flood situation, if you want to zoom and de-zoom, and facing the challenges we discussed earlier tonight, how do you see things? It's completely contradictory. A day is full of different things. I began this morning by discussing of all activities around textile, recuperation, in order to work in construction, consuming less. Then I discussed with an entrepreneur around positive energy buildings. And tonight I had a conference or a meeting with our minister around the floods. I became even better because I felt doing small steps, useful steps, small actions that enable to come to an improvement. It will be long and lengthy because let's not forget that there's a problem because there's a flood, yes, but in the same region at the same time, there was the same flood in 2002, with the same consequence. So what we fear is the series of floods at the same place. Do you want me to tell you what I retained from tonight? One thing. All the subjects you tackle are social, energy subjects, ecology. its subjects we discussed in the regional scheme for development, economic development. Read it, you'll see we already speak about all of this. We can't do this alone, but we have the means. We have already some ideas along those lines. The real event was this young lady from the mines. Here she is, and I'll tell you why. I am certain about something. The ecological energy transition is not an affair of Parisian artists or great organizations. If we want a transformation, we need to allow young people to participate, really. To be able, as you said, to think on their own, to have the keys for success, to be able to go out of my environment. I was very proud of one thing. It has nothing to do with my political life, is that I allowed in Dona, I created some economic activity. So as the hope, this is hope. It is in this 30% of young who don't understand when you talk to them. So don't hate on them. They have to come back to us. This is essential. Sophia. You were very much listening to what he was saying and to what Nigel saying. How did you find this day? What do you think? At the beginning, I thought, oh, this is going to be very lengthy. But it was not that bad. I did not understand everything. But it was not that lengthy. It is rather interesting. And then Perrine was there to explain it to me. And it was it was really cool to come and join you. Thank you, Philippe. I just wanted to reassure. I did not understand everything either. But this is the reason why it is 17 times, and then there will be 18, and at the 25th gathering we'll understand better. But at the 25th edition, we need to thank Marilyn Fouguet and all the teams. She was meant to wear a dress to welcome me, but in any case, let me thank all of you, because we continue tomorrow. Tomorrow, 9 o'clock sharp, we have a lot of events, and we are going to work on work for home kids in Opia. Thank you to the whole team, to the Marilyn, Adrien, who prepared this General Assembly. It is always challenging to reorganize, to reconstruct, to invent, to be creative. And there is a lot of emotion. Thank you to Jean-Michel. You are really here every year. Thank you very much. So we expect you tomorrow. Thanks to the speakers. Thank you to you. Sometimes you came from far away, and who brought their experience and their inspiring words. So we meet you tomorrow, 9 o'clock. A great program, and there will be a conclusion tomorrow night. Jean-Michel, do you allow me to add something? I just would like to speak about Ukraine, because I heard in songs, in witnesses, there are the politicians, the state, the public. Let me tell you an example to show you that everybody does efforts, makes efforts, especially around social aspects. We organized a job dating at the Chambre de Commerce, at the Chamber for Commerce and Industry, for Ukrainian who live here, there are still thousands, and mostly women, and they did not go back yet. And I'll give you an example to show you how Pôle emploi, who is in charge of jobs for jobless people in France, they translated everything on their own initiative into Ukrainian. Everything was translated. So everybody at its own level, with its own method, makes efforts. Because sometimes you don't understand administrative French, so translating this into Ukrainian is already quite a thing. So Suzanne is going to think, and everybody will sing. We all know this song with Laurent Voulzy, Le pouvoir des fleurs. We will have the comment dire refrain? So we can all sing together.
La nature, faire tomber les barrières, les murs, les vieux parapets d'Arthur. Fallait voir, imagine notre espoir. On laissait nos cœurs, le pouvoir des fleurs, jasmin, lilas. C'était nos divisions, nos soldats. Pour changer tout ça, changer le monde, changer les choses avec des bouquets de roses, changer les femmes, changer les hommes avec des géraniums. Je me souviens, on avait des chansons, des paroles, comme des pétales et des corolles. Écoutez en rêvant la petite fille au tourne-disque fort. Le parfum, imagine le parfum. Les dents, le jardin, c'était pour demain, mais demain c'est pareil. Et même des éveils là tout au fond du cœur. Tout changer en douceur, changer les âmes, changer les cœurs avec des bouquets de fleurs. La guerre au vent, l'amour devant, grâce à des fleurs de champ. Ah, sur la terre, il y a des choses à faire pour les enfants, les gens, les éléphants. Ah, tant de choses à faire, moi pour te donner du cœur. Tu verras qu'il y aura des foulards, des chemises, et que voici les couleurs vives. Et que même si l'amour est parti, ce n'est que partie remise. Par les couleurs, les accords, les parfums, changer le vieux monde pour faire un jardin. Tu verras le pouvoir des fleurs avec moi. Y a une idée pop dans mon air.
Changer les âmes, changer les cœurs avec des bouquets de fleurs. La guerre au vent, l'amour devant, grâce à des fleurs de champ.
Changer les cœurs avec des bouquets de fleurs. La guerre au vent, l'amour devant, grâce à des fleurs de champ.
On la retiendra celle-là. Merci à vous tous. Bonne soirée. Rendez-vous demain matin à 9h. Bon
Good evening. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.